Addiction is a chronic disease. Millions of people worldwide suffer from substance and behavioral addictions. An addict's life is often unmanageable, leaving the addict and his or her family and friends feeling completely powerless over the disease. Without treatment, addiction can result in disability or premature death. You are listening to Making an Addict. My name is DJ Burr, and I'm an addict in long-term recovery. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, behavioral addiction specialist, and best-selling author of I Just Wanted Love, Recovery of a Codependent Sex and Love Addict, now available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. I intend to bring you different perspectives about addiction from various sources including other addicts in recovery, clinicians who treat recovering addicts, and families and friends of addicts to discover what makes an addict. Discretion is advised. To learn more about this podcast, check us out at makinganaddict.com or follow me on social media at DJ Burr1022 on Facebook or The DJ Burr on Instagram. Hello and welcome to another episode of Making an Addict. I'm DJ Burr, and this week we are listening to a conversation between Joe Class and I. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that we were able to get scheduled and to get you on the program. Can you tell our audience about yourself and where you're located?
Yes, my practice is called Flowing Water Healing, and our offices are in Federal Way, Washington, although I see clients remotely over the phone or via Skype as needed, so I can see anyone from anywhere in the country.
Excellent.
And I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, a life coach, and most importantly, what I refer to as a soul healer.
Nice. What's a soul healer?
So what I do primarily is, in our society, we've become so cerebral and so sort of detached from ourselves. And what I primarily practice is an effort to bring my clients in touch with their own sense of self and to empower them to be able to get in touch with who they really are and strengthen their own sense of self, their own ego, if you will, but not in a negative way, and help them to build up the strength to be able to face some of those things that they may be using addiction or other not so healthy tools to sort of mask. And in doing so, we help them to sort of fill in the gaps, fill in the holes that may have been left by some of their experiences in life. And it's very much like what medicine men or shaman would have done in villages in ancient times. I'm sort of what you would call a modern-day shaman, although I find the term soul healer to be a little more approachable to our modern sensibilities.
I definitely love the term soul healer. I think people in our profession are spending a lot of time, if not the majority of time, helping people heal those early wounds. And, the focus of this show is about addiction and how people use addiction to numb the pain of their earlier experiences, to fill the void. And some people in 12-step might say, fill that God-sized hole. And so it sounds like your work is very similar to mine, and you have various layers to yours. So can you talk about what your thoughts and beliefs are about what makes someone an addict?
Well, I believe, honestly, that everyone is an addict in one way, shape, or form. We all have experiences from our lives that, all but the very most enlightened of us would like to avoid. And, it can take a lot of different shapes. I mean, our society stigmatizes addiction to opioids and severe alcohol addiction and severe, say, nicotine addiction. But the fact is, the way I treat addiction is that every addiction is about numbing. It's about numbing a need that hasn't been met at some point in that person's life, and I mean, we all do that using. The drug may not be heroin, it might be sex, it might be relationship, it might be religion, it might be an overdeveloped sense of spirituality. A lot of the sort of new age ideas can be kind of overused and turn into a kind of what I refer to as spiritual bypass, where we kind of sidestep our own issues and go straight into a kind of ecstatic space and avoid the problem. And all of those are forms of addiction that not everyone might be aware of.
That's true. And I think we have to continue to have conversations about addictions because it doesn't look the same for everyone. There's a big crisis in our country now around the opioid addiction, but I think all addiction is a crisis. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Every addiction is hiding some form of hurt. And if we don't start healing that hurt that's underneath that addiction, we're going to keep seeing things like what happened in Charlottesville and what's happening, all over our country and all over the world. All we're seeing, all of this hate to me is just angry fear. And it's sort of like the wounded animal syndrome. They lash out because of that inner hurt. And so if we really want to change what we're seeing in society and in the world, we need to heal what's underneath all of that addiction.
Absolutely. I can 100% support this idea that we have to heal those wounds because, like you said, angry hurt. I mean, geez, that's every news article that comes out in recent months. That's every tweet and Facebook post that comes out that's filled with hate. So where do people begin? How do you walk through the process with people?
So my approach is always very much about coming to center, coming to the here and now, kind of like if you've read Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now. That's when someone comes into my office, the first thing we do is simply sit and take a deep breath and look one another in the eye and acknowledge, being in this moment. And you'd be surprised how many people find that such a novel idea. We spend so much time running to the next moment that we don't relish the one that we're in. And by really grounding oneself in the immediate, in the right here and now, it kind of gives them permission to sort of relax, to kind of unfold, to kind of open up. And it becomes, the process almost grows organically from that, just giving them the space. I firmly believe that as therapists, what we're really doing, our clients are renting our emotional space in a sense. And we simply give them the space to blossom and to grow like an orchid, like a prized orchid.
Mm. Wow,
and
I really like that imagery.
And then from that, once they've learned to relax and to open up, specifically with relation to addiction, the main goal is to get in touch with the need that's underneath it. And so I'll use various techniques from hypnosis, from Jungian psychology, from Gestalt, from NLP and whatnot to help them to sort of teach them to fish, as it were, as opposed to giving them a fish. I teach them to foster a sense of strength, a sense of inner strength, a resource from within, and allow them to grow to a point where they're strong enough to be able to substitute maybe a different technique. So we might use a titration technique or something in place of that addiction. And as we begin to sort of peel back whatever that drug might be, whether it's sex or relationships or spirituality or heroin or whatever, as we peel that back, that need will start to surface again. Because a lot of folks have numbed it to such an extent that they don't even know what it is that they need. And so the first key is to kind of peel the Band-Aid back and see what the wound actually looks like. And then when we can actually see what that is, then we use, I typically use an age regression technique a sort of hypnotic technique to bring them back to that place where that original wound happened, and then bring in those resources that we've built up, sometimes over several sessions, bring in that wise adult self that they may not have been in touch with before, bring in their own spiritual connection. I lean very heavily on building up whatever a person's spiritual background is, whether it's Christianity and Buddhism, or it's just a sort of general sense of higher self, and bring those resources in to empower, to heal, to have a corrective experience for that inner child that suffered whatever that trauma was, or whatever that unmet need was. And then through that process, that's where the real soul healing takes place. We'll often do a sort of shamanic soul retrieval kind of process, where we'll find the piece of them that split off at that moment of trauma, and bring that back in and help them to kind of become more whole. And every session they come out of, they come back with more of themselves. And as they have more of themselves with them, there's less and less need for any outside stimulus or any numbing agent. It simply falls away on its own.
Wow. In my experience, most people who are coming into therapy, they're coming in because there's some crisis going on, and they're scared. How does someone prepare, in your opinion, to come into therapy while they're scared and trust you or me or any other provider to help them on this process of healing when maybe they've been living in fear for so long?
So I find that forward movement happens when the pain of where you are outweighs the fear of where you're going to. And that's usually, the clients that come and see me are at a place where they may not know where to move next or what to do, but they know they can't stay where they are. The doctor has told them that the tobacco is going to kill them, or the alcohol is going to kill them, and they need surgery for something and they can't because of their unhealthy habits. And by that's usually the impetus that gets the ball rolling. And for me, as far as I believe anything that you need to change in your life can be changed with two ingredients, and that's all you need is courage and willingness. And sometimes it's just the very smallest amount of courage and the very smallest amount of willingness. But if you can find those two little things in any amount, I or you or anyone with the skills to be able to very gently support without judging. And that's the other thing that I think a lot of the fear comes from, is society's stigmatization and judgment. And so it's so critical for people like you and I to offer a space where that judgment it can't be found. I mean, they can try, and I've had clients try to get me to judge them in some way, and I simply don't. I look at them with nothing but love and compassion, because I know what they've gone through. I'm an addict myself. As I said, everyone's an addict. For me, it's food addiction for the most part, and caffeine. And so it's so much not about judgment. I mean, getting that judgment out of the way is what really allows the space to become sacred, and to allow that person to begin to open up and let go of some of that fear. And once that ball starts rolling, it's like a snowball. It just picks up momentum, and I've seen remarkable changes in a matter of weeks in some cases.
So essentially, people need to have the courage and willingness, and also be sick and tired of being sick and tired. And
exactly.
That's what I find is helpful. Just be done with, being sick and tired, and want to see change occur. Now, I'm curious if your own addiction history or experiences is what brought you into the field of counseling, Is there any connection there?
I wouldn't have noticed it as addiction at the time, but certainly, in retrospect, I think it was. I came into this as a client originally. I was, by all accounts, from outside appearances, I had a successful career in IT, and I had a loving family, and anyone who saw my life from the outside would have thought I was, in good shape. And the fact was, I was probably 6 months away from, as I say, brushing my teeth with a Colt 45. I was severely suicidal, and it was a really dark time. And I found, my loved ones basically gave me an ultimatum to get some help, or to, they were going to get it for me. And I went and found a hypnotherapist. I had been through some talk therapy in the past and hadn't had much luck with it, and I found a hypnotherapist near me that that trained at the same school that I've since trained at, and it literally changed my life. And having done that, I found a calling that I didn't realize was there, and a gift that I had always had, but never really thought I could make anything of. And I can't imagine myself doing anything else now.
Well, I'm glad that you found this profession. We need more people who are willing to come forward and do their work, so they can show up and help others do their work. And
I'm glad you put it that way. Doing our own work, especially the approach that I take, and it sounds like you have a very similar approach. We need to know the terrain.
Ooh,
if I tell my clients that if your therapist tells you they have no issues, find a different therapist. You want someone who's been there, someone who knows the terrain, knows the interior landscape, and someone who's been through those struggles and can offer not just guidance but solidarity. Can take your hand and walk with you. I find that to be a critical part of the recipe.
Right, and that's what I do. At least I try to do with every client who's willing to join me, because when they walk in, I'm ready, right? And sometimes it takes a while to get them ready, and that's part of the work, is being able to sit and hold space for someone who's not ready yet, but who's interested in learning more. And so that's why I do the work that I do, and it's healing.
Yeah. Yes. In bringing the healing to our clients, we double our own healing. I mean, a lot of people might think that our work is very altruistic. Absolutely not. I do this completely for selfish motives. I get as much out of it, if not more, than my clients do.
Right. I mean, this is the best work I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I am doing it for selfish reasons. Doing this work helped me get sober before I even knew I needed to. And so I do my best to try to show up as my authentic self and help people heal. And that's why I'm talking to providers like you and family members and people who are recovering, to continue to spread the message that there is hope. There are things out there that we can do.
There's not only hope, there is thriving. A colleague of mine likes to say, let's stop surviving and let's start thriving. I mean, there is no reason that anyone should have to live a subpar life. We have everything we need. We live in though our own situations may not always be affluent, we live in a very first world country, and there is no reason that anyone should be suffering the way that they are. And I find that even the things in life that don't seem like they would be related to therapy just begin opening up. I had a young woman come to me who was having trouble finding work, and after a few sessions, she actually, an hour and a half after one of her sessions, she had 3 job interviews scheduled. I mean, these things begin opening up. And it's not just about hope or something in the future. It's right now that the life you want is right smack in front of you if you have the courage and the willingness to reach out for it.
I love that. That makes total sense to me. We just have to be right here, right now, and go after it, right?
And we need to give ourselves permission to want it and to go after it. I mean, a lot of times we have this sort of worthiness complex or unworthiness complex, and because of maybe the stigma, the stigma of addiction, or whatever anyone's personal story has been. They have trouble giving themselves permission to have that thriving life, and it's absolute crap. There's no reason to stay there. The only thing keeping you there is your own decision, your own choice.
That is true. But the stigma is real. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about whether you think we will ever overcome the stigma of addiction so more people can get help and thrive.
Absolutely. There's no question in my mind that just from what I've seen in the last few years, the expansion of, 12-step used to be, it was alcohol and it was Narconon and whatnot. Now there's 12-step for practically anything. There's workaholics, foodaholics. It's growing, and people are coming out of the woodwork. And it's sort of like, several years ago when homosexuality was, just beginning to come out, and now it's there's been some stumbling blocks along the way, but it's the bravery of a handful of souls. Like I said, it's a snowball effect. It just, the more people come forward and tell their stories, like you and I and our clients and everyone in range of our consciousness, then tells their story, and everyone in range of that person's consciousness tells their story. We can't stop it. It's not a matter of will it happen. It's a matter of just hold on a minute. It's going to happen rapidly and very, very soon.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I see it happening now. I see glimpses of it. I think there are more resources today than, let's say, even a year ago. For a variety of things. My specialty is sex addiction and codependency and other behavioral addictions. And the discussions are coming, we're having more discussions about it. And I try to lead those conversations as well. I share on my social media about different topics and different articles that come out about sex addiction and codependency, because we got to continue to have those conversations. We got to not hide from those conversations, because those problems have existed forever. This isn't brand new, right? But we have to talk about it so we can deal with it right now, today.
Well, and the motivation to do so is plastered all over the headlines. Like I said before, the pain of where we are is rapidly outgrowing the fear of moving forward. And the things that we're seeing, I don't want to turn this political, but the things that we're seeing in Washington and the things that we're seeing, all over the country are an indicator of that sort of pressure on the now to move out of this place of hiding and fear. And we're seeing it in, as you said, social media, and we're seeing it as the fear and the hate becomes a part of our headlines. The people who are saying, no, that's not what we want. We don't want a world like that, are stepping forward. And, you and I need to be there to help them, find the alternative. And like I said, I think it's just going to snowball.
Right. Yeah. I tell people, I said, I see the things that are happening in our country, politically, socially, and I see a lot of hurt and pain, and I try my best to stay in a position of compassion and empathy for all who are involved. because I know that people just don't show up this way. There's years and years and years of things in the background and at the root that are causing people to hurt. Because one of my guests said recently, hurt people hurt. What is that? Hurt people hurt people.
Yep.
Right. And so
Definitely.
trying to hold compassion for those hurt people, it's a heavy task for sure, because we don't like the things that we're seeing, but I also have to hold space that this person is hurting too, and
Yeah.
and I try to stay in that space instead of being in judgment. But it is challenging. It is definitely challenging. What do you do to maintain your sense of serenity when working with people who are hurt and showing up for them and providing them that compassion and understanding?
Well, number one is absolutely what you said earlier about doing your own work. From the Jungian world, if you have shadow issues, if you have emotional constellations within your sort of energetic self, then whatever your clients are going through are going to trigger those. And so you have to do your own work to be able to stay grounded when their energy is kicked up. That's first and foremost always. Secondly is breathing, deep breathing. It's nearly impossible to panic if you are breathing deeply. You'll notice that when people become enraged or become, when those hurt people are hurting people, they're not breathing. They might be panting, but they're not breathing. And so continuously breathing deeply and, just offering yourself the same compassion that you offer to your clients, holding yourself in that same sacred space that you hold for them is critical. And having that sense of, one of my teachers refers to the umbrella of grace. That there's no possible way you can do this wrong, because it's if you're holding space and you're holding compassion, only good things can happen.
That's beautiful. I really appreciate hearing that, because that's how I show up for my clients, and I think they appreciate it. In fact, some even tell me so, that they appreciate that. There's nothing more gratifying than when your session ends and a client is walking out the door and they say, "I appreciate you." It's amazing, because that's what I wake up every morning for. I wake up to take care of myself so I can take care of other people who are hurting and help them thrive, and to get that acknowledgement. And it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, it is a true gift to hear that.
Yeah.
I truly appreciate it. So tell me, are you on social media, and do you provide outlets on the internet for people to get in contact with you? Do you have a blog?
I do. I have, it can, on my website at flowingwaterhealing.com, I've got several blog articles up there, one of which is entitled "Everyone is an Addict." And I'm also on, we have a page on Facebook where potential clients can, or anyone really, can reach out and follow. I post articles and various, sometimes just inspirational. The meme thing is kind of an addiction in and of itself, but occasionally it strikes an emotional chord and can be meaningful in the moment. Sometimes it's like I find sometimes it's almost like a form of divination. I'll be scrolling through Facebook and exactly what I need to hear pops up in a meme, and I go, okay, that's the divine moves in mysterious ways, and sometimes it happens to be through that kind of thing. But So they can also through the Facebook page or through the website, they can contact me, or they can schedule sessions or schedule a consultation.
Excellent. So I'll definitely make sure to include some links to you and your work, because I think what you're doing is pretty fantastic. Incorporating hypnotherapy into this work is not something I hear a lot about, but I definitely subscribe to it. I think it can be beneficial to help people who are struggling with all issues, not just addiction. And so I want to continue to support that work. So I'll make sure to link to your site and your Facebook page and to those articles that you reference. And I will myself read your article about everyone being an addict, because I subscribe to that. I think that is true. We all have things that we use to numb the pain.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the show and providing some great insight into the world of addiction. And my hope is that you continue to do your own work so you can help other people thrive. So thank you once again for being on the show today.
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining the discussion today on Making an Addict. In closing, I want you to understand that there are various opinions about addiction and what makes someone an addict. The opinions expressed here on today's show are those of the person who made them. I suggest you take what you heard, process it, and decide for yourselves what you believe in. If you have feedback or want to tell your story on the show, let me know by emailing makinganaddict@gmail.com, or you can reach me on social media. Again, I'm on Facebook and Twitter at DJBurr1022 and the DJ Burr on Instagram. Lastly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be of service. Recovery saved my life, and I will be forever grateful. I will keep giving back every opportunity I am given. Tune in next time to witness our ongoing discussion on Making an Addict. Making an Addict is produced by DJ Burr and the Recovery Legacy Network. Today's tracks features music by CDK. Learn more at makinganaddict.com.